And this topic is a fairly simple topic. And if we had to look at what we have done in terms of radioactivity, this topic is mostly based on this small expression. What does this expression indicate? The DN indicates a number of radioactive nuclei which decay in time interval dt, when n was the number of active radioactive nuclei present. With so number which decays is proportional to number of active nuclei into time interval. Lambda is the constant of proportion, which is called decay constant. Negative sign indicates decrease. So what we have done in last 2 days is mostly making use of this expression. And the same expression is lambda is the decay constant, and decay constant it depends on which radioactive element we are talking about. And this term, if we rearrange and on integration, we can find the number of active. This is an n number we can find based on integration, and this expression we get. From this, we can also find out more things. Half-life. Half-life is when the number drops to n0 by 2, it becomes half the initial number. The time corresponding to when the decay is 50% of the initial number, and that value of t comes to that's a half-life. T comes equal to log to the natural log 2 or ln 2 divided by lambda. And we also calculated something like which is mean life, which is equal to 1 by lambda. And using this expression here, if we substitute the value of n can also be written as n0 by 2 raised to power by capital T. This is nothing but number of half-lives. If the ratio comes to 1, it means it is 1 half-life. If the ratio comes to 3, it is 3 half-life. If it comes to the fraction, it's a fraction of half-life. And this is also a very easy way to calculate the remaining number of radioactive elements or atoms or nucleus. Based on this, we have defined one more term called activity. This is activity. What does activity means? It's rate of disintegration. And rate of disintegration from here, it is proportional to number of active elements present at the moment. As this number keeps decreasing, activity also keeps decreasing. And since it's proportional to n, so this activity is proportional to n, the same expression in place of n, we can replace with activity is exactly the same expression. Activity, and the reason activity is relevant, higher the activity is, more dangerous it is for human beings. So this we define something like safe limit. If it is more than that, it is not safe. And we have done one such question based on this line. So last 2 days, this is kind of a summary, and you notice this is essentially only one thing. This one thing, it can have this expression based on integration. We arrived at this. We arrived at half-life also, mean life also, activity, all related coming out of this. So this is the only thing which is new in this subtopic. Rest all is application. Okay, so we'll continue further, and today we'll talk about nuclear fission. This is how nuclear power is generated. We'll understand a little bit about method of generation of nuclear power and how does it happen. And this is more of a theoretical topic, not many formula involved. We'll not go into so much of depth. Okay. So what is nuclear fission? I think we understand already what does nuclear fission mean. Nuclear fission means when heavy nucleus breaks into smaller nucleus. Heavy nucleus has lower binding energy per nucleon. Mid-size nucleus have higher binding energy per nucleus. We have seen that curve. As the binding energy increases, it becomes more stable and energy gets released. For nuclear fission, this is the okay. And how does it happen? We depicted something like this. So we can. This is something as a. It's a kind of analogy. Just assume there's something here. This is a radioactive compound here, radioactive nucleus. It has energy E1. And when it breaks into two parts, this is heavy nucleus, and it is breaking into two middle-sized fragments. This is a mid-sized fragment. When it breaks into this is energy associated is E3. And this energy compared to this is lower, and hence it is more stable, energy gets released. But this we can represent in form of a figure also. So energy of a heavy nucleus is this, and when it breaks into two mid-sized fragments, energy is lower. So when it moves from here to here, it loses so much of energy, and this is the amount of energy which gets released. But the question is, will it break from here to here on its own? Some cases, natural process, naturally radioactive elements, it keeps happening, but it happens at very slow pace. But if we want to trigger this one, why it happens slow pace, we can understand something like this. See, one may feel it should happen on its own. From here it's to this state, since it's a lower state, it should spontaneously break from larger nucleus to mid-sized nucleus. But just think of it. If you just think of it, it's like a drop. If you want to break it, first we need to shake it up. And this is something, it's a mental picture. This is not something which is really happening, but it helps you understand. So what you need to do to break into two parts, what you need to do first, you need to shake it up. You can visualize when you shake up a drop kind of thing, it may become something like this. If you give a small shake, it may become something like this. But if we give little more energy, it may become like this, and it's on the verge of breaking and breaks into this. So before it breaks into two parts, it goes through an intermediate state, and energy in this intermediate state is greater than initial one. And this is how we can represent here. So this is something, so breaking from here to here, it doesn't happen directly. It goes through an intermediate state, which is something like this. And since energy level is higher, this much extra energy need to be supplied for it to break from here. And whatever energy is supplied, the energy gets released is greater than energy supplied, and that's why this net energy gets released. And more this height is, more is this difference in energy level, more difficult it is to take a large nucleus. Okay, more difficult it is to break the large nucleus. And as per the classical mechanics, suppose this is the mechanism here. What is necessary to make it move from here to here? Something you can think of it like a slope. And suppose it's just like a slide kind of thing. If slide is like this, and if object is here, unless we give a required amount of energy, there's absolutely no way it can move from this side to this side. And this thing we can call it as a kind of barrier. We call it energy barrier or something. So in case of classical mechanics, if suppose this amount of energy is delta E, if you give energy less than delta E, what will happen? It will go up and again come down. It will not cross this barrier. The probability of this object moving from this state to this state, as per classical mechanics, is zero if no energy is given. That's what this statement says. As per classical physics, a minimum energy of E2 minus E1 need to be supplied for nuclear reaction to happen. Or other way, what we can state, the probability of fission is zero unless energy is supplied. If no energy is supplied, fission will not take place. That's the classical mechanics. But what is quantum mechanics? Quantum mechanics, everything is probability. What is it says? Uncertainty. This energy E1 here, when we measure energy, we will not go into too much of detail. Heisenberg uncertainty principle is something like this. What does Heisenberg uncertainty principle say? This is variation in energy, or this may call as this, and this is time interval. So when we take product of these two, this is equal to h by 2 pi. So there's always, whichever quantity it is, those quantities are never very definite. There's always some degree of uncertainty involved. And delta E, what happens when time interval is extremely small? See, first of all, this quantity itself is very small. That's why the delta E also is small. But delta E becomes significant if time interval is extremely small. It's product of two quantity. So what it says, when time interval is very small, this delta E, whatever E1 we are taking, actually is E1 can be anything between E1 plus minus delta E. And this plus minus delta E, what is the error or what is the variation in energy level? That depends on for what duration we are talking about. The difference in energy, it may have extra energy for an extremely brief period of time. So this will have a higher the energy level, even smaller period, the energy level will occur. So basically, say whole thing becomes like a probability. So uncertainty in this case, this uncertainty involved. So even if a nucleus has mean energy of E1, there's a small probability, maybe 1 in billion or maybe several billion, it can reach an energy level of E2, and hence there's a very small probability that it may decay. And that's why the whole thing depends on probability principles. And so, and that gives some probability, and that's why decay takes place. And what is the probability? Extremely low. And we'll take example of uranium nucleus. Uranium nucleus, which we are taking this particular isotope, heavy element here, U38, it has a half-life of 10 to the power 16 years. What does it mean? If I take certain quantity of this particular isotope of uranium, if I leave it for what period? 10 to the power 16 years. What is 10 to the power 16 years? Many more than billions of years. Whatever number of this particular isotope were there initially, that number will become half after this many years. Why it has taken so much of time? The probability of conversion of this particular nucleus into a smaller nucleus is so low. Probability is very low in time interval, but as the time keeps getting prolonged, more and more keep getting converted. And that's the reason in nature, both two isotopes exist. Which are the two isotopes? 238 and 235. The one which has shorter half-life, that will have very small fraction. This is shorter half-life. So when we take any uranium sample in the nature, this will constitute only 0.7%, remaining is other. Okay, so this is something, it has half-life of 10 to the power 16 years. And whenever this nuclear reaction takes place, whenever nuclear decay takes place, it leads to release of energy. So every nuclear decay leads to release of energy, but here nuclear decay is happening at very slow process. Question is, how do you make it faster? How do you control the rate of decay? That's the principle behind operation of nuclear reactor. I'll repeat, what is the principle behind nuclear reactor? If we can control the rate at which nuclear decay takes place, we can control power generation. The question is, naturally it is happening at very slow pace. How do we make it faster? So can we supply energy in some other form which can make the probability of decay much higher, which can make we can trigger faster rate of decay. So let's see how does it happen. So this again, we come back to the same nucleus. This nucleus has a high probability of absorbing a slow moving thermal neutron. What it means, if we have a 38 nucleus, if we bombard with neutrons of low energy, what kind of energy? So this is something we call this low energy in a neutron, we call it thermal electron, but this kind of energy exists even at a room temperature. So if neutrons have energy of something of order of 0.04 electron volt, so if this has very high probability of getting absorbed by this particular nucleus, and when it gets absorbed, it triggers nuclear reaction. So what we understand from here, if I have three types of neutron, what are three types of neutron? Some of the neutrons have energy of 0.04 electron volts, and some of the electrons have energy of say 10 electron volts. So if we have certain value of 238, so if we have some sample of U38, we bombard with two types of neutron, low energy neutron, higher energy neutron. Which of the neutrons are more likely to get absorbed? This will have much higher probability getting absorbed. So if we bombard 10 to the power 5 of this neutron, 10 to the power of this neutron, we'll find the number of neutrons of this energy are much more likely to get absorbed by the nucleus than this. That's what this statement means. So are we clear? What can trigger nuclear reaction for U38? If U38 is bombarded or is bombarded by slow moving neutrons, it triggers nuclear reaction. Among the two, faster, higher the energy is, lesser the probability of getting absorbed. So this is the important point in understanding nuclear reaction for the purpose of power generation. So let's see what happens here. So let's say you have this nucleus, a nucleus, and this is bombarded by neutron, slow moving neutron, and when it bombarded by a slow moving neutron, it absorbs this neutron, it triggers a nuclear reaction, and there are the type of nuclear reaction not one. These two are very common type of nuclear reaction. So in one case, what we find here, it forms these two compounds, other case it finds different types of compound. Here also is breaking into two mid-sized nucleus, here also is breaking into mid-sized nucleus. Other thing what we notice in this particular reaction, if one neutron gets absorbed, it releases two neutrons. Whereas in this case, it releases three neutrons. Each neutron here is leading to two neutrons here. One neutron here leading to three neutrons. And these two occur with equal probability. If we say, what is the for each neutron, if we take the weighted average, if both have equal probability, what will the number of neutrons get released? In one case 2, another 3. If both have equal probability, so a weighted average number of neutrons which get released from each absorption of neutron is equal to roughly 2.5. So during fission, on an average, 2.47 neutrons are emitted. Sorry, E word is missed out. So this one to miss. And when these neutrons are emitted, what can happen? This neutron can again and trigger one more. This also may get absorbed, and it may trigger one more nuclear decay. So if each neutron generates 2.5 neutrons, and those 2.5 neutron again generate 2.5 neutron, what is likely to happen? What is likely to happen if this? So every single neutron which is released from the nuclear decay, every single neutron triggers one more nuclear decay. So basically, 1 leads to 2.5, 2.5 leads to again 2.5 to 2.5. Every step and reaction will progress in term, similar to a geometric progression. It will lead to what we may call as a runaway reaction. Are we so far? Are we following this part here? What has to happen? This is something. If each neutron absorbed, how many neutrons it is generating? It is generating roughly 2.5 neutrons. If all of them are again getting absorbed by uranium, it will lead to more and more number of nuclear decay taking place, and it will lead to runaway reaction. Yes.
So the neutrons that are generated after the first bombardment, they'll have around the same energy as the one we use for.
No, they're not. That's why we are coming to. So this is something that doesn't happen. Let's understand what will happen. Is it possible that all of them can lead to further nuclear activity? Is that question? What is said, for it to get absorbed, it is not easy. Something may happen. Let's understand. So first point what you understood, if one neutron leads to 2.5, and again, if all 2.5 gets absorbed, it will lead to 2.5 into 2.5. And if this keeps happening, it will lead to a chain reaction, and it will lead to kind of runaway reaction, it will lead to kind of blast. Rate of reaction will keep on increasing. But it doesn't happen. Let's see what is actually happening and how it can be used for power generation. Yes?
Sir, in the left side reaction, we don't consider the neutron which is coming and bombarding.
What are we looking at? We started with one. If one set of reaction has taken place, one has led to how many? 2 of them. One has led to 3 of them. See, all we don't have to do, you need to remember any of the reaction, we don't have to remember. And none of it we need to remember. All we understand here, one absorption of one neutron leads to emission of 2.5 neutron. Is that simple enough? And then we see what happens to those 2.5. If they get absorbed, it will lead to reaction progressing in form of a geometric progression, runaway reaction. Let's see what will happen. See now, but it may not happen. Let's take the case. So when we have a particular sample of uranium, let's say the uranium is in its simplest form, it is form of a sphere. And we bombard with number of neutrons. What kind of neutrons? Slow moving electrons. What kind of energy? Something of this kind of energy. We bombard with them. And what may happen? It may trigger this kind of nuclear decay. It may trigger this kind of nuclear reaction. But this reaction may happen near the surface. The reaction may happen in the interior part. If it happens near the surface, quite likely the neutron which gets emitted, if it happens near the surface, these neutrons may escape. And this, if they escape, actually they will not trigger further nuclear reaction. If the fission takes place near the surface, it has high probability of escaping. So larger is the surface area, greater is the possibility of neutron which are generated will escape. Okay, so that's one point we understand here. Then second thing, what happens, the neutrons which are generated, here what are the energy of neutron? Slow moving neutron, we call it thermal neutron. Okay, this kind of energy. The neutrons which are generating have different levels of energy. And this energy is of what order? This energy is order of 2 million electron volts. Extremely much higher than this. What happens if the speed is much higher? What happens when the speed is, kinetic energy is much higher? So when kinetic energy is of this order, it has low probability of being absorbed by this nucleus. It absorbs only slow moving one. It does not absorb so readily this. It will have some probability, but extremely low probability. So it gets released, but these neutrons will not again get absorbed, and it will not lead to chain reaction. So two reasons why all 2.5 may not lead to further absorption. One reason is near the surface it may escape, and second reason is they are of much higher kinetic energy, and at that kinetic energy it doesn't get absorbed. It doesn't get absorbed, it will not lead to chain reaction. So, but whenever we have a nucleus here, see, uranium typically is not easy to separate. In most cases, whenever isotopes are there, both the isotopes coexist. Whenever you have U35, you also have U38, it's isotope. Now, both are present here. So when I take certain mass of uranium, unless we call it something like enriched uranium, and many movies and all you would have seen, we will not go to enriched uranium, but enriched uranium, what doesn't, see, in natural case, there's a particular mix of two isotopes. If we want to change, that becomes enriched uranium. So here, when we have this radioactive material, which is uranium, it is a mix of U235, U38. Now, neutrons have been released. They're fast-moving neutrons. Both of them present. High-speed neutrons are much more likely to get absorbed by 238, which does not lead to nuclear decay. So what will happen? Two reasons. One, first of all, some of them escape. Second problem what we face, it has high energy, and if it is at high energy, it encounters both. It may encounter U35, it may encounter U38. We want it to absorb by 235, but at high speed, they have much higher probability getting eluded by U38, and reaction may not continue. So design of nuclear reaction. So these are the factors which are taken care of in design of a nuclear reactor. Let's see how it is taken care of. What we ideally want, that's a nuclear reactor. So what we do in case of nuclear reactor, you have uranium here. Okay. Yes.
So is there a reason for like why only slow moving like low energy neutrons are readily absorbed?
There are reasons. So let's say there are all reasons, but is that reason within our scope? Can we understand based on current understanding of physics? We cannot understand. So we don't know the reason. Okay, they are there. And see, if you look at, I'm just going to pass mains question also. See, this topic we deal with very superficial level as per the syllabus. Okay, and this is very qualitative. That's the reason you find no question has come on this topic. But it doesn't mean nothing may come. So most of the thing we don't have any formula. So numericals cannot be formed because formulas are not there. Numericals which can be formed are much simpler, which we'll deal with later. Just understand qualitatively if this is happening and understand how these factors were taken into account in design of a nuclear reactor. And understand that. This is what is happening. What are the things we understood? If each neutron, slow moving neutron, it has high probability of getting absorbed by which one? By U235. And when it gets absorbed, it may trigger two types of reaction. In one reaction, 2 neutrons are released, other reaction, 2 neutrons are released, or weighted average 2.5 neutrons are released. But it doesn't mean all of them will again get absorbed by U-35. Why it doesn't get absorbed? There are two reasons. What are two reasons? One, we said, if somewhere which are near the surface may escape. And second reason is the neutrons which get released have higher energy, much more than energy at which gets absorbed. So this is a challenge we need to take care of. And third thing, what we need to in case of nuclear design, see, if we want a nuclear reaction to generate constant power, what is necessary for constant power? Can you even tell me what is necessary to generate constant power? The rate of nuclear reaction has to be constant. The number of such absorptions which are happening in a unit time must remain constant, and so rate at which absorption is taking place into energy released in each absorption, product of these two has to be equal to power generated. So ideally, what we want every neutron in a steady state, every neutron which is released out of 2.5. Only one of them should again further get absorbed by U-35. 1.5, let them escape. This ideal scenario then only reaches steady state. Out of 2.5, if more than one gets absorbed, what will happen? Rate of reaction will keep increasing. If less than one gets absorbed, what happens? Rate of reaction will slowly die down. And if exactly out of 2. Every nuclear fission, if it leads to one more nuclear fission or n is equal to 1, then in the case it will have a steady state. Is this understood, this point here? Anvita, are you following what I said?
Yes, sir.
No, you don't sound very convincing. Advay? Advay?
Yes, sir.
Are you following this? What is this 2.5 and 1, less than 1, more than 1?
Can you explain again, sir? I didn't follow all the way through.
You are not following, okay? Okay. Let's say initially there are 10 to power 10 number of neutrons. How many neutrons are there? 10 to power 10 neutrons. All of them get absorbed by U-235. Can you tell me how many neutrons will get released after absorption? How many neutrons are released? Each neutron which is absorbed, how many neutrons are released, Advay?
2 each.
I said 2.5. So basically, how many?
Okay. Okay.
So each one set of reaction has taken place, and it has led to release of 2.5 into 10 to power 10. Now, this many neutrons are there. Suppose all of them get absorbed, what will happen? Now, next step. Now, how many? All of them get absorbed. If all of them get absorbed, what is the next step? How many neutrons will get released?
That number times 2.5.
Again, 2.5 into 2.5, that becomes equal to 6.25 into 10 to power 10. And what is happening here? How many reactions have taken place? How many nuclear decay? 10 to power 10 nuclear decay. The number of nuclear decay has become 2.5 times now. This system, number of nuclear decay has become 6.25 times. What is happening to power generation also? The power generation, the energy which is getting released also will keep on increasing. Because why it is increasing? This number is greater than that. But what if out of 2.5 into 10 to power which are released, only 10 to power 10, same number only gets absorbed. In that case, what will happen? Next step also, number of decay which will happen will be same as the previous one. Hence, the energy released also will be same as previous one. And this, it will produce. What happens if only half of them get absorbed? Then what happens? The number of neutrons have become lesser. Next step even become lesser. The nuclear reaction will keep slowing down. It will come to a stop. So what has to be happen in case of steady operation of a nuclear power plant? Each neutron out of 2.5 which are released, exactly one should get absorbed. Then only it will reach to a steady state. Steady state, if it is greater than 1, it will lead to increasing rate of reaction. Less than 1, rate of reaction will decrease and die out. Now,
yes, sir.
are you following this?
Yes, sir.
Have you understood 2.5? What is 1? What is greater than? What is less than 1?
Yes, sir. These the nuclear.
So when we design what we want, so in case of design of a reactor, what do we need for design of a reactor? What condition is necessary for design of a reactor? Out of 2.5 neutrons which are released, 1 neutron should get absorbed. Again this will again release 2.5 out of 2.5 which are released. Again only 1 should get absorbed. Then only the reaction will proceed at a steady pace and constant power will be generated. That's what the design of nuclear reactor is. Let's see now what happens in case of nuclear reactor and how power is generated. So let's say this is something. So here there's a uranium cylinder, and uranium cylinders are pretty small, but it's like a sugar cube. If you want to see this actual pellets which are used, like a cube. And it's like a sugar cube what we see, and each pellet can generate energy which is equivalent to energy generated by 1 ton of coal. That's the kind of ratio, just to give an idea. So if we use a nuclear power plant where uranium is used as a fuel, uranium is in form of pellets. There are small pellets or pellets of the size of sugar cube kind of thing. And whatever energy power this sugar cube generate, same power if I have to generate, same energy, sorry, not power, same energy you have to generate using coal, I'll use 1 ton of coal. That's a kind of ratio. And so do you understand why this is supposed to be much more cleaner form of power generation? Let's see what happens here. So there's a uranium rod here, and uranium rod, here when the nuclear reaction takes place, it will release neutron. And this neutron will travel in different directions. Are you able to visualize what happens? Neutrons have released, they start traveling in the different direction. What you find here, this is the new uranium, this is uranium. In between the uranium, you see a certain rod here. What is this rod? So between 2 uranium cylinders or 2 uranium pellets or 2 uranium rods, this is something, this is another thing here. What is the red color thing? This is called moderator. So between any 2 uranium rods, there is moderator. So whatever neutrons which are released here, it will pass through moderator before it reaches the next uranium rod. And what does this moderator do? Moderator slows down the neutron to a kinetic energy equal to thermal kinetic energy by the time they reach the next uranium pellet. I hope, have you understood what I said now?
Yes, sir.
Understood role of moderator?
Yes, sir.
What does moderator do? Can you tell me?
It slows down the high energy neutrons to thermal neutrons.
So basically, new moderators are placed between 2 uranium rods. When neutrons from fission reaction, when they get released, which are traveling at high energy, before they reach the adjacent uranium rod, they are made to pass through moderator, and role of the moderator is to slow it down. To what level? So it collides with the particle of the moderator and it slows down. Number of collisions take place and it slows down. Ideally, that's where the design of reactor comes in. It slows it down to a level so that I get absorption ratio of every 2.5 neutron which is generated, only 1 should get absorbed here. And that is achieved by suitable use of moderator. And what are the moderators? How is the energy released? Energy is released by the process of collision. So what happens? You have fast moving neutron, and you can do in case of collision also again. So suppose we have mass m, and there is another mass which is capital M. And so this has some kinetic energy. After the collision, it will lose certain amount of kinetic energy. And the kinetic energy this object will lose, the loss of kinetic energy, you require elastic collision. So there's a particle A, which has some kinetic energy K. It collides with another particle B, and if both have same mass, what will the loss of kinetic energy of A if both are of the same mass? Just what will the loss of kinetic energy of A? Elastic collision.
It'll be half of it, right? So it'll become K by K.
Elastic collision. If they become merged into one, half the energy is lost.
Half the energy. Yes.
In case of elastic collision, the interchange velocity. What will happen in
velocity.
case of this perfectly head-on elastic collision? It will lose entire energy.
Entire energy. Yes.
So what we understand from here, the transfer of energy, transfer of energy is maximum when the other particle also is of the similar mass. So that's why that's a principle. When we use a moderator, we should use in this case moderator also, it should collide with something like hydrogen atom. Even if the H2O is there, even as a molecule, this neutron may go and collide with the hydrogen atom. When it collides with the hydrogen atom, it transfers greater share of its energy. When it collides with the heavier atom, a smaller fraction is transferred. And these are, again, I think these are points, just I think just more for your understanding. I don't think from exam point of view very important, but you understand it's okay. So what makes slowing down process faster? If the moderator has atoms which are of similar size as neutron, then lesser number of collisions will slow it down. What is the material we use? We use material which are commonly used. Water is most common one. Natural water is used as a moderator. Heavy water. What is the difference between water and hot water? This is something in compound H. Here deuterium is there. So here this atom is slightly heavier compared to hydrogen atom. Or graphite. These are the common moderators used, and distance is so adjusted that neutrons slow down to thermal energy before they enter the next rod. That's the role of the moderator. And another property the moderator should have, it should slow it down. It should not absorb itself. So what may happen in case of water? What happens? Not only it slows down, it tends to absorb a nucleus. It tends to absorb a neutron, and when it tends to absorb, it converts itself into heavy water. So in case of water, even though ideally we would like to have a moderator which is a low absorber, and we use the term low absorber cross section, and I don't worry too much, but it should not self-absorb neutron. Then in that case, what if it absorbs a neutron, it will not reach and it will not continue the reaction to continue. It should only slow down, similar mass, and these three have this property. Common moderator. Water is common even though its absorption is slightly high. It is still preferred. Many reactors, water is the most common one used. Is still preferred because of low cost. Heavy water is perhaps the absorption is lower compared to normal water, but heavy water is expensive. It's also used, but if you look at total number of nuclear reactors which are present, this is much more common. Graphite also is there, but graphite also you need to use very pure form. So again, it needs to cost of purification and all. So this is also not as commonly used as water. So these are the three common moderators, and that's the role they have. So this is a moderator. So what does moderator do? Again, slows down. Again, when they reach here, okay, it gets absorbed. And it just can't slow down every neutron to the same value. But so many collisions are taking place. So what will happen when they reach here? Some of them, their kinetic energy are changed in such a fashion that some of them will get absorbed by U35, some will get absorbed by U38. All we want is out of 2.5 which are released here in fission, exactly one should get absorbed in U35 to continue my nuclear reaction. So in a steady state, each neutron should trigger one fission. Each neutron should trigger one fission, and so on it should continue. But still, sometimes my power requirement is 100 watt. If power requirement, power generation, different times of the day, power requirement is different. If requirement of power drops, sometimes I find it's getting heated up. Okay, sorry, before I come to that part. What will happen, where would this energy come from? When the neutrons, where is the energy here? Neutrons carry the energy. This material here, the rods here, are what you may call as uranium rods. Okay. When the fast moving neutrons, when they come and collide, it may not get absorbed, but it may collide also. The absorption and collision are two different things. It may have collision with the atom. Whenever it collision with the atom, as we have seen before, it will keep transferring its kinetic energy to the body of the uranium rod. If it keeps transferring kinetic energy, what will have? It will get heated up. So the kinetic energy of neutrons, and if at all any gamma ray, gets transferred to the moderator as well as to uranium rods. They get heated up. As they get heated up, we circulate a coolant here which takes away heat energy. It gets converted into steam, which can lead to power generation. So neutron energy, gamma energy, it gets converted into heat energy in terms of energy is transferred to atoms of, or it transferred to the body of uranium rod. It is transferred to moderator. So this whole part of the reactor, temperature rises, it gets heated up, and that heat is taken away using circulating water, and that is used for power generation. That's how the whole thing comes. So whenever we want, if a rate of reaction is doubled, the heat generated also will become double. Rate of fission, how do we control rate of fission? In addition, moderator has certain role. We also have something called control rod. What you see here, the control rod, they are at a particular height. What does control rod do? Control rod is made of cadmium and which is very good neutron absorber. So just imagine what will happen if I lower the cadmium rod. If these rods are lowered, what will happen? What is the role of the control rod? What is the property of the control rod? They are very good absorber of neutron. When we lower this rod here, it will absorb more number of earlier. It will start absorbing neutrons, and as it absorbs the neutron, lesser number of neutrons are available for fission. The rate of reaction will decrease, and finally will come to a stop. Control rods are used either to slow down nuclear rate of nuclear fission or rate of nuclear reaction, or even to stop it as a safety measure. That's safety as well. In some cases, this control rod is held here in this position using electromagnet. Why it is used as electromagnet? Because the power is generated, the power which is being generated is circulated here. The reason they use electromagnet is in case of something goes wrong in nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plant also runs on electricity. All controls on nuclear power plant runs on electricity. And what happens? There's a failure, electricity is not working anymore. And so if your electricity control is not working, all control system will stop functioning. So such case, to make sure it is in the safe condition, if electricity fails here, these control rods are held in position using electromagnets. If electricity fails, electromagnet also gets deactivated. The control rod will fall and bring the nuclear reaction to a stop. So this also is a safety measure. This is how it operates. So key elements here is a uranium rod, moderator, and control rod. Each has certain role. So sometimes you might have read that nuclear reactor is gone critical. What does critical mean? Initially, when we start a reactor, we want more than one. Or see, in case of these days, even we use term R0, even in case of corona also. And that R0 is very similar to the term what we use in case of nuclear reaction. When we start the nuclear reaction, we want R0 to be greater than 1. So that we want initially rate of nuclear fission to increase up to a desired number. After it has reached a desired number, that's called critical state, we want the rate of reaction to remain constant. Initially, order 2.5, more than 1 we want to be absorbed by U35 until it reach a state which is our desired state of operation. From then onward, we want n is equal to 1. And we want to slow it down, we want this ratio to fall less than 1. Okay, so that's how we operate a nuclear reactor, and I think we have dealt in more detail than what is necessary. And that's the one. This is fission. What happens in case of fusion? In case of fusion, two light nuclei, if they come within the range of attractive nuclear forces. Until they come within the nuclear forces, the force acting is repulsive. Moment they come to a distance which is of the order of femtometer or Fermi, attractive forces start acting and they will come and fuse together. So when they come and fuse together, so two smaller nuclei fuse together to form a larger nuclei. The larger nuclei has higher binding energy and a lot of energy gets released. Okay, that's this kind of. So this is something. So in case of fission, it moves from here to here, lower state binding energy to higher energy binding energy. In case of fusion, it moves from here to here, lower binding energy to higher binding energy per nucleon. Okay, for it to happen, if there are two nuclei, if they're at certain distance, they will experience force of repulsion. Why is the force of repulsion? This is electrostatic force of repulsion. Initially, it is force of repulsion is between force of repulsion of orbiting electrons and as well as force of repulsion and orbiting electron, and also as if they come closer due to repulsion between the protons as well. So what will make them come close? And if you understand here, if two charges are there, there's one charge Q here, there's another charge Q here. And if they give them small velocity, they will travel and immediately turn back. If we give them higher kinetic energy, they will come closer to each other. To make them come very close, the kinetic energy required is even higher and higher. So here, what is kinetic energy? Kinetic energy is nothing but temperature of the object. So what kind of temperatures are necessary to make two light nucleus come to a distance of the order of Fermi? The temperature required is of this order. Extremely high temperature, which is even greater than sun temperature. But we know even at lower temperature also, speed distribution is like this. So even there also, some of the nuclei have higher than RMS kinetic energy. At the summit, they'll have velocity much higher than VRMS. So they will have that kind of energy. They will come this close. If they come this close, they fuse together. They form deuterons, and that leads to fusion energy. This is what happens in case of sun and other stars. What kind of reaction is taking place? This is the kind of reaction which is taking place in sun. Hydrogen, they combine to form neutron, and neutron, they combine with, okay, and neutron again gets combined, deuterium forms tritium, and then they combine, they form helium. If I look at all this stuff here, in very common language, what we can say, in case of sun, what is being used as a fuel? Hydrogen is being used as a fuel, and what is the product being generated? Helium is being generated. And in this process, a lot of energy is getting released. So hydrogen is being burned in sun to produce heat, generating helium gas as its byproduct of waste product. So this is a kind of reaction which is happening in sun, which is responsible for such a large amount of heat. And for this reaction to happen, the necessary condition. That's why it's not easy to create fusion nuclear reaction. Okay, so that's in terms of theory. So that's all we need to know in terms of nuclear reactor. Now, what are we left with? We'll go through some more questions or numericals based on previous topics here. Let's go through one by one. A radioisotope is being produced at a constant rate A. So the production also is taking place. And this isotope has a half-life T. And initially, there's no nuclei. After a long time, the number of nuclei becomes constant. What is the value of this constant? So let's see what will happen. Initially, let's understand this question. What is given here? Initially, at same close T is equal to 0. And let's call this, what is the number at N0? N0 is equal to 0. There's no nuclei present initially, but it is being generated at rate of A. What will happen if you take time delta T? In time delta T, what happened? What is the number of nuclei generated? Number of nuclei generated will be A into delta T. But as soon as they are generated, it's a decay also will start. So what is happening as a N naught here, as we start generating, this number will keep rising. As the number keeps rising, the rate of decay also will keep on increasing. So both the things are happening. One side is number of this radioactive nuclei is increasing because of the generation process, and it's also decreasing because of decay process. So what would be is a dN by dt? dN by dt indicates rate of change of this radioactive nuclei. Can we write an expression for dN by dt? What is dN by dt? dN by dt is rate of change. If there was no decay, I would written dN by dt is equal to A. Do you understand this dN by dt is equal to A if there was no decay? There is no decay. But the decay is also taking place. What is the decay which is taking place? Minus lambda. So that's the expression. So whenever both the generation as well as decay both are happening, this becomes my differential equation, and this is a constant rate, and this gives you equation at any intermediate state when the number of a nuclei is n. This is the expression. What it says, after a long time, the number of nuclei become constant. When it becomes constant, so after a long time, t tending to infinity, it becomes constant. And if it becomes constant, what does constant imply? If it is constant, what is dN by dt? It means rate of change of number is equal to 0. If this is 0, A is equal to lambda n, or number of nuclei, when number of nuclei becomes A by lambda, the number will remain constant. And the reason is simple to become constant at this number, when if this is the number, rate of decay exactly matches with rate of generation. So if I plot something like this number, it may come something like this. Initially 0, it may increase and then become constant. And what is the number constant? A by lambda. And the slope initially is equal to A. Gayatri,
Yes, sir.
have you understood this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so dn by dt, that's the expression. Okay, so this is simple. Next, okay, next one. So rate of change in number of nuclei is equal to dn by dt is equal to rate of production minus rate of decay. That's expression, and we can use this expression in some other questions also. I have not seen many questions coming, but this is a new differential equation, and we could have solved mathematically also. Another way of solving this equation, it becomes equal to dn is equal to a minus lambda n is equal to dt. And if I want to find out what is the number at time infinity, I would have done even this also. We could have calculated what is the number at infinity, what this number and infinity. We could have done, but even this is easier. When it becomes constant, we equate, we get this number. Next one is something like this: a thermonuclear reaction. So many kg of hydrogen is converted into helium. Efficiency generation is 50%. What is the heat generated in kilowatt hour? So what you notice here, when nuclear reaction, see whatever material we take in nuclear reactor, after the nuclear reaction is getting over, its mass will get reduced here. So in this case also, there's reduction in mass, delta M, and energy which will be released will be equal to delta M into C square. Okay. So hydrogen converted, efficiency thermal is generated in kilowatt hour. This again we will when we substitute here, this value I'll get in terms of joules, and to convert into kilowatt hour, you should know what the conversion is. Otherwise, this question is fairly simple. Now coming to some of the questions which have come in the mains. So now onwards, I will take this question which have come in mains. All questions, first read for a minute. After a minute, I'll start explaining how to go about solving those questions. Let's look at all questions one by one. This is related to activity and price number. All of you please read the question, then we'll go about solving. What is activity equal to? This is simply based on activity is equal to lambda n. And two activities are given at some instance. So this is based on activity is equal to lambda into n, number of nuclei present. So material A, what is given here? Material A activity is given. Material A activity is given as 10 microcurie is equal to lambda A into Na. And something material B is also given. Material B, what is the activity here? Material B, the activity is given as 20 millicurie, and that will be equal to lambda B into Nb. But something else is given, has the activity and so and so. Number of nuclei. What is relationship between Na and Nb? That also is given here. What is relationship between Na and Nb here? Na is equal to 2Nb. So this is equal to okay. What we need to find here, this is information given. What is the ratio of half-life? If I have to calculate ratio of half-life, what is Ta by Tb be equal to? What should I write here? What is half-life? What ratio should I write here? The lambda is given A by T, lambda B by lambda A. So lambda B by lambda A, this values, and if we take ratio, we easily can find out. We substitute lambda A and lambda B, and we find the ratio comes equal to 4:1. Half-lives are in the ratio of 4:1. Which option matches here? Only one option matches. So this is pretty simple based on principle of activity, simple substitution. Next question. You have two radioactive substances A and B have equal activity. let me write what is activity of A is equal to lambda A initial activity and initial activity of B, or let me write as R because the question also is given in terms of R. The initial activity of A is this, initial activity of B is something like this. They are equal activity, they are equal. So first condition what is given? Lambda A NA naught is equal to lambda B and B naught. I just completed writing in information which is given. What we need to find the ratio of RB and RA. So what will their activities after time t? What will RA be equal to? RA will be equal to RA naught e raised to power minus lambda AT. And what will the activity of B after time t? What is given? The ratio is given, RB by RA. So what is RB by RA equal to? This ratio of activity at time t. And this is equal given as e raised to power minus 3t. For first term, this is given, these two are equal. So what if this term comes equal to? It comes equal to e raised to power minus lambda A minus lambda B into t is equal to e raised to power minus 3t, or lambda A minus lambda B.
So we should get lambda B in the numerator, right, sir?
Sorry, yeah, my mistake. I written A only. This lambda B should come in the numerator. Lambda B minus lambda A. So when we take it becomes lambda B minus lambda A. It's right. Lambda B minus lambda A. Lambda B minus lambda is equal to 3. And what we need to find here? Okay. Half-life of A is given. So I need to convert into half-life. Easily you can convert. So this equation becomes equal to log 2 TB minus log 2 TA is equal to 3. What is given? Half-life of A is given as 2. So this value is given as log 2. So you get an answer. Log 2 by TB is equal to 4. Yeah, that's your answer. Next one. And all this question, all of you must solve yourself. Next question. How much time is left here? Okay. This is very, very easy. Most of you questions should be able to solve in your mind. R naught activity is given here. In 8 seconds, it becomes 1 by 16. In 6 seconds, how much it would be? So we can easily find how many half-life. 8 seconds, 1 by 16. 4 half-life. 4 half-life is equal to 8 seconds. Each half-life is 2 seconds. It becomes 1 by 8. So with this question is very simple. Next one. Okay, so it's almost time. So I'll do one thing. I'll just stop here. I will send a copy of this file. So most of you, if you get time, try to finish on your own. If not, I will go through all this question in afternoon session. So these are the questions which have come in the recent past. We should be able to solve all of them, and they're not fairly straightforward questions.